Hello and a very warm welcome. Thanks for tuning into News 9 Live. I'm Kabir Naqvi and you're watching this special broadcast of top stories from our studios here in the National Capital Region. And like every day, we have an expansive list of stories for you to cover. We will shift our focus to the 70th day of the West Asian conflict between Israel and Hamas. We will talk about top global developments in terms of presidential elections, prime ministerial elections, climate change stories as well. But first and foremost, ladies and gentlemen, let's quickly take a look at what's happening back at home. We've got several political chess pieces that are moving and domestic developments that we have to bring to your notice. Take a look at this. In the Parliament breach case, Lalit Jha, who is the suspected mastermind behind the shocking security breach at the Parliament, he voluntarily surrendered to the police. Reports indicate that he walked into the police station at Kartavya Path and surrendered. After being on the run for almost 2 days, the Kolkata-based teacher claimed to travelled by bus to Rajasthan's Nagaur via Neemrana, where he was staying at a hotel with 2 friends, and travelled to Kartavya Path, to the police station in Kartavya Path, when he came to know that the police was after him. Now, the breach involved 4 individuals who smuggled in the smoke bombs during the Lok Sabha proceedings. Investigators disclosed the motive behind the smoke protest was to draw attention to unemployment, farmer issues and the situation in Manipur. The group is associated with the fans of Bhagat Singh Facebook page. During the court proceedings, Delhi police sought a 2-week custody of the accused, charging them under UAPA and sections of the Indian Penal Code. The police argued that the operation resembled a terror attack, raising questions about the underlying motives. They emphasized the need to investigate whether any terrorist organization was involved in this particular security breach.
किसके कहने पे किया? किसके कहने पे किया? किसके कहने पे किया? सागर किसके लिए काम करते हैं? किसके लिए काम करते हैं? किसके इंस्ट्रक्शंस पे काम किया आपने? दिए थे आपको? किसके कहने पे किया? किसके कहने पे किया? किसके कहने पे किया? सागर किसके लिए काम करते हैं? किसके लिए काम करते हैं? किसके इंस्ट्रक्शंस पे काम किया आपने? दिए थे आपको? किसके कहने पे किया? किसके कहने पे किया? किसके कहने पे किया?
लोकतंत्र के सबसे बड़े मंदिर यानी कि संसद में सुरक्षा में सेंध लगाकर सदन में पहुंचकर कैनिस्टर फोड़ने वाले यानी कि जो उत्पाद मचाएगा, उस मामले में पुलिस ने 4 आरोपियों को गिरफ्तार किया था। सभी आरोपियों को गुरुवार को पटियाला हाउस कोर्ट में पेश किया गया और यहां पर दिल्ली पुलिस की तरफ से कहा गया कि ये जो घटना को अंजाम दिया गया है, ये एक आतंकी घटना जैसा है, जहां पर सदन के अंदर गैलरी का पास बनवाया था, लेकिन उसके बावजूद जो है दोनों के दोनों जो आरोपी हैं, अगर उसकी बात करें मनोरंजन और सागर की, तो वो सदन के अंदर कूदे और वहाँ पर कैनिस्टर जो जूते में छिपा कर लेकर के आए थे, जिसमें जहरीली गैस होती है, उसे संसद के अंदर फोड़ा गया। तो वहीं पर नीलम और जो अमोल हैं, वो संसद भवन के बाहर जो है उन्होंने इसी तरह की वारदात को अंजाम दिया। कुल मिलाकर यहाँ पर कोर्ट में दिल्ली पुलिस की तरफ से कहा गया कि ये इस मामले में आईपीसी और यूएपीए की जो धाराएं हैं उनको लगाया गया है और इस मामले में जांच करने के लिए दिल्ली पुलिस को 15 दिन का रिमांड चाहिए। हालांकि यहाँ पर कोर्ट ने 7 दिन का रिमांड दिया, लेकिन दिल्ली पुलिस की तरफ से दलील दी गई थी कि इस मामले में क्योंकि जो आरोपी हैं वो अलग अलग जगह, कोई महाराष्ट्र से है, कोई जो है मैसूर से है, हरियाणा से है, लखनऊ से है, तो ऐसे में अलग अलग जगह जाना है। साथ में कोर्ट को ये भी जानकारी दी गई कि जो जूते हैं वो लखनऊ से खरीदे गए थे, उसमें बाकायदा कैविटी बनाई गई थी ताकि जो कैनिस्टर है, बम जो है, उसको वहाँ पर छिपाया जा सके। और ये जो कैनिस्टर हैं वो महाराष्ट्र से खरीदे गए थे और उन्हीं को लाकर के संसद में इस्तेमाल किया गया था। साथ में ये भी कहा गया कि जिस तरीके से इन्होंने जो नारे लगाए थे, जिस तरह की बातें जो हैं वो पोस्टर्स में लिखी हुई थी कि इसका खून ना खौला वो पानी है। साथ ही इन्होंने भगत सिंह फैन क्लब का एक पेज भी बनाया गया था जिसके जरिए एक दूसरे से जुड़े हुए थे। तो वहीं पर प्रधानमंत्री को गुमनाम भी बताया गया था। तमाम इस तरह के एंटी नेशनल स्लोगन जो हैं उनका इस्तेमाल किया गया था। अब पुलिस की तरफ से कहा गया कि इन आरोपियों का संबंध क्या है, इनके पीछे कौन था, तमाम मामलों की जाँच करने के लिए 15 दिन की रिमांड की जरूरत थी। हालांकि ये भी कहा गया कि यूएपीए के तहत जो है 30 दिन का रिमांड मांगा जा सकता है, लेकिन इस मामले में जो पुलिस है उसे 15 दिन की रिमांड चाहिए थी। लेकिन यहाँ पर जो आरोपियों के रिमांड एडवोकेट थे उनकी तरफ से इस बात का विरोध किया गया और कहा गया कि इस मामले में जांच के लिए 4 से 5 दिन ही काफ़ी है। दोनों पक्षों को सुनने के बाद कोर्ट ने इस मामले में जो आरोपी हैं उनकी 7 दिन की रिमांड दे दी। अब देखना होगा कि इन 7 दिनों के अंदर जो पुलिस है वो इन आरोपियों को कहां लेकर के जाती है और इस मामले में क्या और भी कोई लोग हैं जिसमें सम्मिलित है। जिस तरह कोर्ट ने बताया कि जो ललित झा है वो फरार है, तो और भी इसमें आरोपी हो सकते हैं जिनकी तलाश करनी है पुलिस को। तो तमाम इन 7 दिनों के अंदर इस इन्वेस्टिगेशन को जो है आगे बढ़ाने की कोशिश की जाएगी। अपनी वीडियो सहयोगी संसद भवन में सुरक्षा के चूक के मामले में जो आरोपी हैं 7 दिन की रिमांड भेजा गया। मेरे साथ दुल जी हैं, दिल्ली से पुलिस को इन्होंने रिप्रेजेंट किया। सर, क्या कुछ दलील रखेगी कोर्ट में?
सर, हमने कोर्ट में बताया कि इसकी पुलिस कस्टडी जरूरी है इस इन्वेस्टिगेशन करने के लिए, और जज ने सुनने के बाद जज साहिबा ने इसको 7 दिन की पुलिस कस्टडी रिमांड।
सर, आपने यही बताया कि जूते लखनऊ से खरीदे थे, कैनिस्टर मुंबई से, थोड़ा उसके बारे में बता दीजिए।
जी सर, ये बताया था।
हाँ, थोड़ा सा बता दीजिए।
अभी ये पार्ट ऑफ इन्वेस्टिगेशन,
प्रधानमंत्री के बारे में कहा गया।
नहीं सर, अभी उसके बारे में हम कर रहे हैं।
तो बिल्कुल देखिए, यहाँ पर जो आरोपी हैं उन्हें 7 दिन की रिमांड भेज दिया गया। हालांकि दिल्ली पुलिस की तरफ से कहा गया है कि जो आरोपी हैं वो अलग अलग जगह से हैं। यही बताया कि जो जूते हैं उनमें कैविटी बना के लखनऊ से खरीदे गए, जो कैनिस्टर जो है वो चलाया गया था वो मुंबई से खरीदा गया। कुछ आरोपी मैसूर के हैं, तो कई जगह पर रेड डालनी है, लोगों से पूछताछ करनी है। इस चीज़ को लेकर के 15 दिन की रिमांड मांगी थी। हालांकि कोर्ट ने यहाँ पर 7 दिन की रिमांड दी। अब 7 दिनों के अंदर पुलिस ये पता लगाने की कोशिश करेगी आखिर ये जो आरोपी है आपस में कैसे मिले और कहाँ पर इस बात की प्लानिंग हुई थी।
Well, now this is what we're picking up even as you're looking at the pictures on your screens of what transpired on the 13th of December.
लोगों के लिए भी है। गिर गया? सभा की कार्यवाही 2 बजे तक के लिए स्थगित की जाती है।
So even as you take a look at these pictures as to what happened on the 13th of December, a Delhi police official has now told various news agencies, it's now out in the open, that Lalit Mohan Jha, he came to the police station on his own. He's currently being interrogated. Now Lalit Mohan Jha, can we run the pictures of Lalit Mohan Jha on the screens? The 6th accused of the security breach in the parliament that took place on Wednesday was apprehended by the Delhi police just last evening. A Delhi police official, he has also told various news agencies that Lalit Mohan Jha came to the police station on his own. He's a teacher from Kolkata, the apparent mastermind of the parliament breach attack, the security breach, and he surrendered on his own at the Kartavya Path police station in central Delhi. Meanwhile, moving on, the Global Partnership for Artificial Intelligence under India's presidency, it adopted the New Delhi Declaration on Artificial Intelligence. Minister for State for the Electronics and Information Technology, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, he said that the declaration promises to position GPAI at the front and center of shaping AI in terms of both innovation and creating collaborative AI between the partner nations and increasing applications of AI in healthcare, agriculture, and other areas. Listen into the man himself.
No, I think a lot has been achieved. There was a very tremendous and an important New Delhi declaration that was adopted unanimously by 29 countries yesterday that speaks to the future of AI, that speaks to the need for these 29 countries to work together to create a governance framework for AI. And secondly, to work together to really create cutting-edge collaborative AI platforms for healthcare, for agriculture, that can benefit the peoples of all the countries in the world. And third, most importantly, or equally importantly, yesterday it was decided by all of the countries that AI, the future of AI, should be inclusive, that it should not be left to 1 or 2 countries alone, that countries led by India, which our Prime Minister has already done with DPIs, that we must include countries of the global south as we shape the future of AI. And as you can see today in the expo, there are hundreds of startups from India that are already signaling to the world how mature the Indian AI ecosystem is, what the ambitions of the Indian AI ecosystem are, and I have absolutely no doubt that India will play a pivotal role in the shaping of the governance of AI and also the innovation and the power to do good of AI in the coming years.
And shifting our focus here, expelled Trinamool Congress Member of Parliament Mahua Moitra. She's approached the Supreme Court. She is challenging her recent suspension from the parliament. Senior advocate A.M. Singhvi, who is representing Mahua Moitra, had asked Chief Justice of India D.Y. Chandrachud to take up the case on the 15th of December. Now, Moitra accused the Parliament Ethics Committee of breaking every rule in their handling of the cash for query allegations against Mahua Moitra. The committee submitted their report on December 8th after weeks of inquiry. And the famous Sabarimala temple in Kerala's Pathanamthitta district finds itself embroiled in yet another row as the Travancore Devaswam board has come under fire for failing to manage the heavy rush of devotees. Take a look at some of these visuals. As many devotees have been forced to return without a darshan, it has also turned into a contest of political brinkmanship, with the Bharatiya Janata Party and the Congress and other caste groups accusing the ruling Left Democratic Front, the LDF, the ruling dispensation in Kerala, of poor crowd mismanagement in the hill shrine of Sabarimala. Even as Kerala Chief Minister Pinarayi Vijayan claimed that the situation at Lord Ayappa shrine in Sabarimala was under control, local reports, they've stated that the devotees have had to wait for at least 18 hours on end just to reach the shrine. And in terms of chief ministerial faces, Bhajan Lal Sharma of the Bharatiya Janata Party will take oath as the new chief minister of Rajasthan on Friday. Now, Diya Kumari, Prem Bairwa will also take oath as deputy chief ministers of Rajasthan. They will be administered the oath by Governor Kalraj Mishra. The Bharatiya Janata Party had won 115 seats in Rajasthan's November 25 assembly election, while the ruling Congress ended up securing just 69 seats. Voting was held on 199 seats for the 200-member state assembly. Bhajan Lal, the new chief minister of Rajasthan. That's not all. Diya Kumari and Prem Bairwa are also going to become the deputy chief ministers of the state.
मैडम थोड़ा घूम के इधर
Meanwhile, the Muslim side has decided to move the Supreme Court against the order of Allahabad High Court, allowing a court-monitored survey, this of the Shahi Eidgah premises that is adjoining the Krishna Janmabhoomi temple in Mathura. Secretary of the Shahi Eidgah Masjid Management Committee and advocate Tanveer Ahmed, he told news agencies that the committee will challenge the High Court's decision in the Apex Court. The High Court on Thursday allowed a court-monitored survey of the Shahi Eidgah complex, an important milestone in the temple-mosque dispute in Mathura. The court agreed to the appointment of an advocate commissioner to oversee the survey of the mosque premises, which the petitioners claim holds signs suggesting that it was a Hindu temple once. Justice Kumari Jain said that the modalities of the survey will be discussed at the next hearing on the 18th of December.
मस्जिद नहीं है एक बार हल्का लाल दिखाता वहीं के बगल में बाटे हुए हैं शाही ईदगाह का मतलब मस्जिद नहीं है एक बार
And moving on, Union Home Minister Amit Shah introduced the 3 amended bills which will replace the criminal laws in the country in the Lok Sabha. He told the Speaker that most of the amendments were grammatical corrections, with a few sections in the laws being amended. Now, the 3 laws are the Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita 2023, the Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Sanhita 2023, and the Bharatiya Sakshya 2023. The 3 criminal law bills listed for discussion. The Post Office Bill 2023 is also listed for discussion today. Watch on News 9 Live to bring you all the latest details live from the parliamentary proceedings. Well, time for us to slip into a quick commercial break. We will be talking about the West Asian conflict right on the other side. In the meantime, COP28, that landmark agreement, but India's role as India's promise to cut down its emissions to net zero by the year 2070. Here's a promo and we'll come back for more.
वर्ष 2070 तक भारत नेट जीरो का लक्ष्य हासिल करेगा।
There's certainly a wall of capital coming into the clean tech, climate tech space, not just in India but across the world.
This and more, streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
The following content may contain visuals that are disturbing, graphic, or sensitive in nature. Viewer discretion is advised. This material is intended for mature audiences and may not be suitable for all viewers. Please exercise caution while watching, and if you find such content distressing, we recommend discontinuing viewing. This disclaimer is provided to ensure awareness and to prioritize viewer well-being. Now, the war between Israel and Hamas has entered its 70th day. Let's get you the latest update before the expanded stories on your screens first. The IDF says that 70 Hamas gunmen have surrendered at the northern Gaza hospital. It has also aired footage. We will show it to you. The Israeli military has apparently placed a bounty on the Hamas leaders. Meanwhile, Israel attacks Hamas sites across the Gaza Strip, this being corroborated by the IDF via its Telegram channels. Palestinian Prime Minister says political horizon is needed for peace at the moment. Israeli army has meanwhile released video of ground and aerial assaults on Gaza Strip. Now, the IDF released footage of Palestinian gunmen surrendering at Kamal Adwan Hospital in northern Gaza. Take a look. Israeli troops, in collaboration with the Shin Bet security agency, engaged and defeated Hamas operatives in the hospital area. According to IDF, approximately 70 Hamas members surrendered, handing over weapons and equipment. They are now undergoing interrogation by the Shin Bet and the Military Intelligence Directorate's Unit 504. The Israeli military has reportedly placed a bounty on Hamas leaders as well, with flyers dropped in the Gaza Strip offering money for information on the whereabouts of Yahya Sinwar and other commanders in the terror group. Images of a pamphlet that are circulating on social media. The pamphlet promises financial incentives, including $400,000 for details on Yahya Sinwar and $300,000 for his brother Muhammad Sinwar. $200,000, beg your pardon, for Rafa Saleme and $1,000 for Muhammad Dief. The flyer contains a telephone number and a contact on the Telegram messaging app, with the idea of promising confidentiality to anyone who wants to call in and provide any kind of information on these four people. Well, our drone footage showed people at the site of damaged structures following an Israeli airstrike in southern Rafah. Survivors and locals were seen amidst the debris, searching for any signs of life, casualties, or salvageable belongings. In the aftermath, Israeli forces have besieged the coastal strip, causing extensive destruction. Palestinian health officials have confirmed nearly 19,000 casualties, with fears of thousands more trapped beneath the rubble. Meanwhile, Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammad Shatayyeh asserted that international demands for the Palestinian Authority to revamp leadership and intensify reforms divert focus from the essential requirement of a political vision for post-Gaza war peace. Shatayyeh urged international involvement to resolve the long-standing conflict, expressing disappointment with the United States for not employing its regional influence effectively.
What we need is a day after for all of the Palestinian territories. What we need is to see an end to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the materialization and manifestation of a two-state solution. The issue is give us a political horizon. We need American measures to support the two states. That's what they are saying. So the issue for us is not, whether we reform the health sector or we reform local government sector or this and that and so. That's not the issue. The issue for us is that Palestinians have been suffering for 75 years. And nobody, the people who talk about two-state solution, okay, the two-state solution has become like international anthem. It's just people, they need measures on the ground. That is the thing. This is a paradox that should not be there. So United States can put serious pressure on the Israelis. United States can tell Israel to stop the war. Today what is needed is for the United Nations Security Council to say with a very clear timetable that this Israeli occupation that has occurred on the Palestinian territories since 1967 should end, and this is the timetable that should be given to the Israelis, to the Palestinians, to end this conflict. What we need from the United States really is some sort of implementable measures. We need Washington to walk the walk, not only to talk the talk. So therefore, there are so many measures that Washington can do but has not been doing. So therefore, the only country that can deliver Israel is the United States, and very unfortunately, they are not doing the work. Our people are starving. Those who might escape bombardments might be dying from hunger and starvation. Those who might make it out of starvation, they're dying of their wounds. So there is no medical supplies, there is no food.
Now, as Israel pounded the Gaza Strip on Thursday, Washington's envoy was in Tel Aviv to discuss how its ally could better protect Palestinian civilians in its war on Hamas terrorists. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, he met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and spoke with other officials, including the country's defense minister, about possibly transitioning to what the White House called lower intensity military operations in the Gaza Strip.
As Israel pounded the Gaza Strip on Thursday, Washington's envoy was in Tel Aviv to discuss how its ally could better protect Palestinian civilians in its war on Hamas militants. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan met with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and spoke with other officials, including the country's defense minister, about possibly transitioning to what the White House called lower-intensity military operations in Gaza. Here's White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby.
One of the things that Jake did talk to him about was progress in the war and where the Israelis think it's going to go. He did talk about possible transitioning from what we would call high-intensity operations, which is what we're seeing them do now, to lower-intensity operations sometime, in the near future. But I don't want to put a timestamp on it. I think you can understand that the last thing we'd want to do is telegraph to Hamas what they're likely to face in coming weeks and months.
At an event in Bethesda, Maryland, Reuters asked U.S. President Joe Biden if he wanted Israel to scale back its assault on Gaza by the end of the year.
I want them to be focused on how to save civilian lives, not stop going after Hamas, but be more careful.
Meanwhile, in the Rafah area of southern Gaza, dozens of wounded people were taken to the hospital on Thursday after an Israeli airstrike targeted a house. Paramedics said 6 were killed in the airstrike and dozens were injured, including women and children. Israel launched its campaign in retaliation for a rampage by Hamas, whose fighters killed 1,200 Israelis and seized 240 hostages in a cross-border raid on October 7th. Since then, Israeli forces have bombarded the coastal strip and laid much of it to waste, with nearly 19,000 people confirmed dead according to Palestinian health officials, and thousands more feared buried under the rubble.
Lots more continues right on the other side. Time for us to slip into a quick commercial break here. Don't go anywhere.
वर्ष 2070 तक भारत नेट जीरो का लक्ष्य हासिल करेगा।
There is certainly a wall of capital coming into the clean tech, climate tech space, not just in India but across the world.
This and more, streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
He thought he could outlast us. And 1 year later, the evidence is right here in this room.
Who will blink first? So far from preventing the expansion of NATO, Russian actions have actually resulted in the expansion of NATO.
It's a mess for Russia and it's a mess for the Western world, for NATO and the United States.
Putin is a dictator, and if he loses, that means the end of his regime, and probably of him personally. So he has to keep going.
Year 2, no end in sight. Streaming now.
The scale of the attack was something that we were surprised at. David Hadley was a double agent. The Americans did not want him to be fully exposed, so all that he probably shared with the Americans was not shared with us in terms of intelligence. If we had that, I'm sure that we would have been able to deal with the situation far better.
This and more, streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
Today, she is the only smiling leader in Rajasthan. All eyes will be on her moves if the BJP returns to power.
Vasundhara Raje Scindia defied all the odds to become the first woman chief minister of Rajasthan.
She has the uncanny ability of striking rapport with all sections. That's why she is very popular in her constituency, not only in her constituency but in entire Rajasthan.
This and more, streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
Welcome back. You're watching News 9 Live. Taking a look at some top global stories. Donald Trump's election interference case in Washington will be put on hold while the former president further pursues his claims that he is immune from prosecution, a judge ruled on Wednesday. The decision from United States District Judge Tanya Chutkan raises the likelihood that Trump's trial on charges of plotting to overturn the 2020 election, currently scheduled for the 4th of March, will be postponed as the appeal of a legally untested argument wins through the courts. And from US, cutting all the way across to Taiwan, where the upcoming presidential and parliamentary elections in January highlight the generational rifts over the island's relationship with China. Take a look.
As Taiwan prepares to vote in the presidential and parliamentary elections next month, polls reveal deep divisions between generations towards its relationship with China. At this government-run veterans' care home in northern Taiwan, this former soldier's chest tattoo of the island's flag carries the complexities of those ties. Wang Zhiquan, who is 93, joined the Chinese army when he was only 13 and holds tragic memories of war.
I still dare not watch the news when I watch TV. War is cruel and cold. When I started serving as a soldier, people were forced to enlist during the civil war between the Kuomintang and the Communist Party. When they couldn't catch adults, they would catch children.
Defeated in the Chinese Civil War, the nationalist Kuomintang government fled to Taiwan 7 odd decades ago, but no peace treaty was ever signed to end the war. China's communist government has since been pushing for what it calls reunification with Taiwan and has ramped up its military pressure against the island in the past few years, stoking fears of a war that could drag in the United States. Those tensions are dominating election campaigns in the run-up to Taiwan's January 13th ballot. The ruling Democratic Progressive Party champions the island's separate identity from China. But despite moving to Taiwan and later fighting for its island of Kinmen, Wang's sense of identity remains tied to China.
Taiwan is a part of China. It has been since the Qing and Ming dynasties.
It's a view shared by many from his generation, like fellow care home resident Sun Guoxi. The 110-year-old veteran believes his current government is being provocative. He warns that if a conflict breaks out, the island would be no match for China. Yet their views conflict with mainstream Taiwan, who overwhelmingly view themselves as Taiwanese and not Chinese, according to polls. He is political scientist Song Wen-ti.
There is certainly a generational shift. The older generation was a lot more likely to be for unification, and the younger generation a lot less likely. The younger people tend to have a separate, almost distinct Taiwanese national identity, as opposed to a more Chinese national identity. So in that sense, the trend lines on support for unification is a downward one, less and less support for unification over time.
The main opposition party, the pro-China KMT, has cast the election as a choice between war and peace, a line Beijing has echoed. But as campaigning heats up, some in Taiwan are hoping to mend rifts rather than further the divide. As this 22-year-old says, we can only try our best to understand the others and learn why they might have certain ideas. Even if we can't agree with each other, as humans, we should still be able to talk normally.
Meanwhile, it's also important, ladies and gentlemen, that whilst we're talking about Israel and the Hamas war, we must shift our focus to the Ukraine and Russia war as well. Only yesterday it was Vladimir Putin's marathon press conference for about 4.5 hours, where he took in direct call-in question answers as well. Meanwhile, many Russian individuals, as quoted by Associated Press, have taken extraordinary steps by joining the ranks of Ukrainian forces amid the ongoing conflict. Now, motivated by various factors, these Russians have chosen to fight against their homeland, aligning themselves with Ukrainian military efforts. Notably, a unit named the Siberian Battalion, primarily composed of Russians from ethnic minorities residing in Russia's far east, has officially been integrated into the regular Ukrainian army. Unlike other volunteer units in the region, the Siberian Battalion undergoes meticulous security checks, a process that lasts up to about a year before members actually start receiving training and are deployed to the front lines in eastern Ukraine. This region has witnessed intense and protracted battles between Ukrainian and Russian forces, marking a significant theater of conflict. Meanwhile, even as the European Union is discussing accession woes when it comes to Ukraine, United States' made F-16 fighter jets for Ukraine have arrived at the training centers in the United States and Europe. Kyiv's allies hope the modern aircraft can push Russian planes farther from the front lines, target radar transmitters more effectively, and hunt down more cruise missiles. Take a look.
American F-16 fighter jets set for Ukraine are making their way to training centers in the United States and Europe, as Kyiv's allies hope the modern warplane can push Russian jets further from the front lines and change the shape of the battlefield from the air. The F-16 will replace Ukraine's strained and thinning fleet of the Soviet-designed MiG-29s and other jets dated back to days of the Cold War. They have advanced radar and their weapons boast greater range and may allow Ukraine to better Russian air defense systems. Western military officials and experts also say the F-16s will help Kyiv integrate with Western allies and break Ukraine's reliance on aging hardware built by its enemy. Training enough pilots and support crew to operate the new fleet will take months. 8 pilots and 65 support personnel are in the first stages of learning how to operate the F-16 in Denmark. Others are in Arizona and Romania. Although the exact number of aircraft has not been disclosed, experts expect it to be in the dozens. Kelly Greco, a senior fellow at the Stimson Center, adds that air combat training would be next, with 6 to 8 weeks of instruction. Air-to-ground training would last another 2 months. A Ukraine Air Force spokesperson said he did not expect the jets to operate in Ukraine until 2024. Russia has warned against delivering F-16s to Ukraine, with its ambassador to Denmark saying in August that doing so would be, quote, an escalation of the conflict.
Meanwhile, European leaders gathered in Brussels on Thursday for a high-stakes summit on Ukraine accession. Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban is blocking both EU membership talks and giving 50 billion euros in financial aid for Kyiv from the European Union. Now take a look at some of these visuals that we'll put out on the screen for you. Much to the exasperation of his European Union partners at the crucial time for Ukraine, take a listen to this report to understand better.
This is a historic moment.
In a major political win for Kyiv, European Union leaders agreed on Thursday to start membership talks with Ukraine. EU diplomats and officials said it was unexpected and that the green light came as Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban, who had for weeks said he would block a deal, agreed to leave the room knowing the vote would go ahead. Such an unusual way to approve a decision, especially such a major one, is unheard of in Brussels. Orban confirmed that he had abstained from the vote on what he called a bad decision.
Mr. Orban was very well aware of the decision that was going to be made.
Belgian Prime Minister Alexander De Croo.
The message that is given is a very clear message. We are on the side of the Ukrainians who are fighting for our freedom, who are fighting for respect of their country. And the message to Moscow is also a very clear one. We will not be intimidated. The European unity is there, and we are on the side of the Ukrainians, even at the most difficult moments.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky welcomed the move in a social media post, writing, "History is made by those who don't get tired of fighting for freedom." The European Council also decided on Thursday to open accession negotiations with Moldova, grant EU candidate status to Georgia, and also advance a bid by another hopeful, Bosnia and Herzegovina. For Ukraine, the talks themselves are likely to take years. The decision comes at a time when Ukraine's counteroffensive against Russia's invasion has failed to make major gains, and U.S. military aid has become more uncertain.
Now, speaking at his annual press conference, Russian President Vladimir Putin said that Russia currently has a total of 6,17,000 troops fighting in battle zones in Ukraine. Putin also said children of people he knows have fought in Ukraine as part of private military companies, and some have died as well. The Russian president added that veterans from private military companies who fought in Ukraine should receive same social support from the state as any other war veteran. And that's not all. Russian President Vladimir Putin also emphasized the significance of maintaining United Nations mechanisms, including the veto power held by Permanent Security Council member states. When questioned by a Turkish journalist about the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, Putin expressed his hope for a meeting with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan early in 2024.
Что касается роли ООН, вы знаете, здесь нет ничего необычного.
Я тоже говорил об этом. Ведь во времена холодной войны очень часто различные силы, различные государства блокировали те или иные решения, которые продвигали другие страны.
And Russian President Vladimir Putin asked about a possible prisoner swap for the Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich and U.S. Marine veteran Paul Whelan. The president said he hoped an agreement would be reached, but that the United States had to listen to Russia's conditions first.
Почему бы не совершать, не сделано на самом деле? Ну, судя по тому, мы не то чтобы отказались их возвращать, мы не.
And moving on, China is in the grip of a severe cold spell as it is experiencing heavy snowfall, disrupting transportation in various cities like Beijing. Now, the China Met administration, it is predicted a further 8 to 12 degree Celsius drop in most regions over the next 2 days, with some areas, including central Inner Mongolia and northern Shaanxi, facing a plunge of more than 20 degrees Celsius. This extreme weather follows a year of climate extremes in China, from frigid temperatures in January to record rainfall and scorching summer heat, all attributed to the impacts of climate change. And a look at a story from the world of sports. Eddie Jones is making a comeback as Japan's rugby head coach. The Australian is taking up the role again after resigning as Australia's head coach in October following a not-so-great Rugby World Cup for the Wallabies. This time, he's got big plans for Japan. The 63-year-old, who has Japanese connections through his mother and wife, wants to turn Japan into a top 8 team with a speedy style of play. According to the organization, he will officially start his duties on the 1st of January, and he is denying any talks about the Japan job before his team's final World Cup warm-up match. It's a fresh start, and Eddie Jones is ready to make some moves in Japanese rugby. Moving on, Madrid's zoo and aquarium just started off the Christmas vibes in a unique way. 3 drivers who were dressed as the 3 kings dove into a shark tank to set up a nativity scene. Take a look. Picture this, a surprised-looking baby Jesus chilling next to Mary and Joseph while these festive divers bring in the gifts. It's like Christmas, just underwater. The whole setup is on display for everyone to enjoy until the 8th of January.
Nunca. Nunca, nunca.
And on that extraordinary vibe, how about we end this segment of Top Stories? Lots more continues right on the other side. Vouch on News 9 to bring you the latest. Many thanks for watching.
I was in New York City. I teach at Pace University and I was sitting in my office and I was working, and I got a call from one of my nephews, Naftali, who had connections with Princeton. And it seems that the Chabad, the emissaries, had been searching around to try and find somebody who could speak Indian languages. So that's how it started.
Hello? Go ahead and tell him that we have progress.
जी जी
आप जो चाह रहे थे वो कर रहे हैं यहाँ
ठीक है करें करना पड़ेगा
My office is in New York City.